Hi, everyone. Jen Sharf here, starting a pre-Luke Ford show live stream for your viewing entertainment. I've never done this before, so I thought I'd give it a try. Just setting myself up here to talk about a couple things. Looks like Luke's show is going to be about this idea of IQ, because apparently Nassim Taleb has been quite in his position that it's not really indicating much other than your own propensity for taking an IQ test. And Molyneux has he's had a bit of an evolving view over the years where he's started, I think, with this idea of the non-aggression principle and anarcho-capitalism. And he just going to share this to my social media. Yeah, so Molyneux's been an interesting case because he's kind of one of these celebrities that had a following before the internet became like a really big thing. And by that I mean like that major cultural edicts were kind of coming from sources that were tangential to poll and other fringe sites. Even though if you look at poll in terms of an Alexa ranking, it's actually quite a popular site. So it does have a lot of people on it. But this is just sort of also an indication as to how much the culture has really changed, probably starting around the Trump election era, people getting more active online. Like before that, it used to just mostly be cat posting. People would get on Facebook to share images and plan events with their close friends. Like they didn't tend to have friends on social media that they didn't know in real life. At least I didn't, not any movement I was ever part of, but that kind of changed because people started going into more political mindedness, and that really hasn't let up. It seems to only be accelerating, and we can observe much evidence for that. But coming back to the IQ thing, I mean, Molyneux has a certain worldview, and I think it's kind of evolved over time as he's gotten more perspective. But ultimately, he's not really interested in taking on or understanding a radically different worldview from what he already has, which is basically, to sum it up, Western civilization is Western civilization. Even though, I mean, nobody can even tell you what Western civilization is past the geographic location. There's no unified ideology, and people want to cite Christianity as a galvanizing moral force, when most of what you see in Christianity in the modern day stems from paganism. So the religion that people had before Christianity, which is just kind of funny. It just goes to show you the degree of cognitive dissonance with these people that don't really have anything underlying, no fundamental truth underlying their worldview. And I hate to call Molly Memes out on this because he's a fellow Canadian. I imagine, a benign person and in some ways, but his arrogance seems to always get him in the end. He seems quite triggerable. And as they say in the dank web, if you show emotion, you lose. You can ask Bob punish Bob about that. I mean, he's not the smartest guy, but even he understands that if you lose your cool, I mean, it all kind of comes back to this point that Luke's been realizing lately, where if you have a false belief and you're presented with evidence that contradicts the false belief, you are going to experience cognitive dissonance, and that's unpleasant. And that's why people try to get worldviews that are scientific in nature. This is so that they can predict the future, i.e., have a worldview free from cognitive dissonance. And this is a problem for everybody who doesn't have enlightenment, basically. As you approach fundamental truths about nature and reality and society, you're bound to have some false beliefs in there. I mean, if you don't account for that, you're basically saying that you have perfect knowledge before you've actually achieved perfect knowledge. So it really helps to go in with this attitude of, okay, I might be wrong. But Molly Memes doesn't want to look at it that way, because he has this big body of work that would essentially be, I don't want to say invalidated, but it would be recontextualized, heavily recontextualized, if it were reviewed within maybe a different, more accurate worldview. So this Western supremacism that is just so tiresome, because people can't even justify their own position. They can't take facts into account. Like, they have this hatred inside of whatever group they've decided to lump together to demonize, to blame their problems on. Oh, they didn't have anything to do with Western civilization. There's nothing inherently wrong with Western civilization. Well, why is it collapsing then? If it's so awesome, why does it require you to extort resources from other countries through slave labor and currency manipulation? Like, the fact that people don't understand this, and that they want to attribute Western civilization to some, I don't want to say racial superiority, but that is kind of what most people are alluding to. I'm not going to deny that races exist. They do. They represent a shared descent. There's no way to contradict that. But to attribute what has happened in the West to any one particular race is to fundamentally misunderstand what the West is. So if you know nothing of the East, i.e. the non-West, how do you know that you're right about anything? That's a problem a lot of people encounter, that they get new information and they don't know how to contextualize it. They don't know how to process it. I mean, most people, when they think about Indian civilization, the first thing that comes to mind is the bride burning. Nothing else. Just, there were savages, burned their wives if the husband died, and they were lucky to be colonized by Britain. Well, if Britain was such a good colonizer and so noble and so righteous, like, why is that country falling apart today? Tell me why that is. If all these things work so well, why aren't they working anymore? Why are so many people miserable, and so many people want to, cling on to literally anything to change things? I mean, we've got people like Claire Kaw promoting the idea that a secular Quranic dictatorship is a solution to our problems. I mean, obviously, if this is something that people are giving credence, we've really lost sight of what reality, truth actually are. So this idea about IQ, it comes very late in the game. Nobody ever heard of IQ. When was IQ invented? Like, people, if you want to understand, if you want to be involved in a meaningful way in socio-political movements, which have some degree of globalism in them, so you have to accept that and understand that there's a world that you need to have some semblance of an accurate grasp of what's going on in that world. Not one that's going to make you have cognitive dissonance and then just start saying street shitters and then thinking that that means that you won the debate, and now you can just have retarded live streams on heel turn talking about how whites was Kangs and whites wrote the Vedas and God knows what else, you idiotic, subversive losers with basically, you know what, fuck it, I'm actually glad that you're doing it, because it goes to show how powerful my message is. The fact that you have to trot out these Aryan Kangs fantasies and the Carolyn Emmerichs and the Dave Martells of the world, the lying scumbags who are astroturfing people who are looking for the truth. I'm glad. I'm really glad that you're doing it, because now you're on my turf. You're on theocratic turf, and you're not going to win. But please, I invite you to try Mark Brahman. Go ahead. Have fun. Please. You go ahead. What is IQ really telling us? Really? If you've ever done an IQ test, you realize that it's questions essentially it's about pattern recognition. So given a set of elements, can you predict the next element in the set? Now, I do agree, pattern recognition is part of being intelligent. I'll give you that. I'm not saying IQ is 100% wrong. What I'm saying is that unless IQ is 100% right, it won't make all the predictions. So you have to understand, if you can give predictions, i.e. cite evidence that goes against what the predictions of IQ are, that implies IQ has something missing. Maybe it does answer some questions. I would say it's predictive to about 115. So someone has an IQ above 115, that's kind of saying something, and below is kind of like, I think you can say something between the IQ of someone with 100 versus 115, but you can't say 115 versus 130. Like, I wouldn't be able to talk to those two people and say, okay, that's the one with the higher IQ, because there is some point at which IQ becomes, it loses its predictive power. So there's that. There's also the fact that it's really only looking at one dimension of intelligence. And I would say intelligence comes down to two things. Your ability to imagine, which is it's a spatial simulation. Sort of how clearly can you visualize a sphere or a torus? That's an expansive aspect of intellect. And the contractive aspect of intellect is actually, it's the more important one. It's called discernment. It's ability to tell the difference between two things. Now, that's the one where you always have to be really careful, because if you're using discernment improperly, it's recursive by nature, because the mind is a fractal. You can look it up. So if you have an incorrect presumption on one level of the mind, it's going to be reflected in a fractal manner on all other aspects of the mind. I don't really know how much IQ really measures this. The first one, the spatial reasoning. I also think that it's a lot easier to substantiate the hypothesis that it was retroactively invented to justify a particular sociocultural worldview than it was actually designed to discover something fundamental about mankind. So I see we've got some comments in here. I'll have a look at them. I'm just warming everybody up for the Luke Ford stream. He's going to talk about the Taleb guy. I don't know anything about this guy, not going to lie. I just thought it was funny that him and Molly Memes were having like a cat fight on Twitter. And yeah, I like I'm not like addicted to the E-Celeb drama, but I kind of feel like the drama is part of building a movement, so I kind of enjoy it. So Mr. Trad says, tell Luke to unban me from his chat. They said I was harassing you. Aw. Well, you were saying some pretty retarded things, though, Mr. Trad. I just want an excuse to be a mud shark. Okay, see, that's the kind of thing that is probably why Luke banned you, because Luke likes me. Like, you gotta realize not everyone is seeing the same thing when they look at me as you do. What people see when they look at me is a reflection of their own self-image. Luke has high self-image. Luke is interested in spiritual wisdom. Look at everything Luke's done in his life. He's had a very unusual life. Okay, the man can recognize spiritual mastery. Okay, so I'm not going to tell Luke anything. Email him or whatever. Say I'm sorry and I won't insult Jen again. Battle of Canada channel. Hi, nice to see you. Am I for real? Yes, I am for real. Problem solving is the essence of intelligence. It's a lot of things. Ultimately, what intelligence, it comes down to how you're defining intelligence, right? You can define these things differently. If intelligence is making a lot of money, well, then you have to go by who has the most money. Those are the most intelligent people. If intelligence is achieving enlightenment, well, you have to look at who has out of the group, the biggest proportion of enlightened people. And then it's a question of how do you measure enlightenment? And that's the real problem with measuring intelligence, is there's always a human bias to it. What kind of channel is this? Well, it's the Church of Entropy, as in it's a church and there's a lot of entropy. So entropy is a fundamental law of the universe. It's a very beautiful thing. A lot of people misunderstand it as meaning chaos, which that's only part of it. Entropy has to do with how systems evolve with time. And if you understand entropy properly, you can predict how systems will evolve with time, which is the point of religion. Ideally, if you want to have a religion that does not cause cognitive dissonance, it must be true, fundamentally true. And that's why you have to seek that your religion be true, because there is a human element. There's always a risk for your own human organ subverting your view of truth. What kind of education this lady have? Oh dear. I have a degree in physics and math, and I got that at Ottawa University. And I've been a teacher of various sorts since I was a teenager. So that's basically a little bit about me. I sound high, okay. Tell Luke to unban, don't be an immature brat, can't take a little banner. Well, look, it's Luke's channel, dude. Like, that's my whole thing. I'm very libertarian in a way. I want people to follow their own path, because I know I can't force people to do things. I don't want to force people to do things. I want people to listen to what I say, use the brain that you have, and come to your own conclusion. Now, I don't know what kind of brain you have that you thought that trolling me on the live stream was a good idea. See, right? Like, it's like, you're not supposed to, you have to look at it a little bit the way Luke does with his guests. Bants should be hierarchical. The point of bantsing people, the point of making fun of people, is because they're doing something wrong. I'm not doing anything wrong. So, if you want to make a joke, it's all good. But if you're just like constantly trying to undermine my authority, it just gets a little old at some point. And Luke has a lot of people on his chat, and he has a lot of trolls on his chat. So I would be remiss to tell him what to do with his live stream. It's obviously working for him. The man has been working relentlessly for a very long time. And I feel like he is only just now hitting his stride. And he's done that, by and large, through personal discovery. Okay? So if I go in and say, Luke, do this, I mean, really, that's not super respectful, is it? I demand respect, and I also give respect. Do I believe in Jesus? I don't know what about Jesus you want me to talk about. Do I believe that it's possible to die and then come back from the dead? I would say that's not possible. So, Mr. Trad, I see there's a comment that you sent here that got caught by the filter here. And, I do appreciate the question. Okay. The truth is that I am teaching people where they're at. Okay. So if I put into action a series of events that cause people to stop listening to me, well, then I'm in trouble. So I have to reach people where they're at. So if you go on my blog, you can read an article I wrote to an Indian man who is talking about quantum politics. And you'll notice I was somewhat harsh, because I know he can take it. And the reason I'm maybe less harsh with other people is that I don't really think they can take it. And that's part of the art of teaching, is to meet people where they're at. Now, what I want to do is cause people to want me to give them the whole truth. But that's a process. That's a step-by-step thing. I am no more pandering to any one group than any other group. I'm simply meeting people where they're at. I understand, because it's something I think everyone struggles with. I mean, look at where we are in the world today. Most people are very unhappy, very lost. I don't want to contribute to the undermining of social cohesion. hello, vegetable. And the fact is, I have a lot in common with people who study religion. That puts me in the same camp as Claire Kaw. You know, we don't see eye to eye on everything, but in a lot of ways, I see where she's coming from. Like she's a friend. You know, to me, that's what a friend is. So like, I'm not gonna alienate the people that I know I have so much in common with. Like I don't feel so threatened that I need to really go down the route of overtly calling out people for their flaws. I think it's important that we all, everyone included in this, stops denying reincarnation. I don't really know how else to say it, really. So when I talk to someone like David, he says he accepts reincarnation. So what am I supposed to say to that exactly? And then I talk to a Christian and they say that I should be burned at the stake because I'm a heretic. So if you were me, what would your reaction be to that? We teach people how to treat us. So as long as people are respecting me, it's my tradition to respect them back. And the fact is, if people make their needs clear, then it's a lot easier for me to meet those needs so long as they don't violate my own tradition. My tradition is not one of oppressively forcing my views on other people. And I know that's what people are used to. They're used to submit or die. I'm not like that. I'm trying to show you that there's a better way. There's a much happier way. And it may or may not involve sunglasses. So I don't know if Luke's stream has started yet. I think it's supposed to start around now. So I don't want to step on the toes of his stream. So I've got his stream on my thing. So okay, when it starts, we'll probably hear it, and then we can all go over there, and it'll be like we're in a cult, and it'll be just like the old days. So Jay Walker asks, "Is it not me who is lost?" Well, I'm fine. I know where I'm going. I'm not lost. I solved the periodic table. I proved reincarnation. I don't think I've ever felt lost in my life. I'm funny. Thank you, IL. Excuse me. Okay, yeah. So I've got the thing on that sort of removes messages that might be rude. So I'm not going to put the ultra rude messages. I'm pretty cool with trolling. Usually, we're the whack job. She's not. Well, I mean, you tell me, Mr. Trad. Is it really that hard to believe that when you die, you reincarnate? I mean, that's what the laws of physics predict. Conservation of energy. So if you're speaking against reincarnation and saying it doesn't happen, you're basically denying conservation of energy, or you're denying that the mind has energy in it, which I think is a bit stupid, because obviously there's energy in the mind. That's what powers the body. Very eccentric. Yeah, it's actually funny because people have called me eccentric my whole life. And I guess I find that's it's kind of a cute thing to say. I don't know why people say that. I guess that's part of what it means to be eccentric, is not really relating to normies. In the sermon, Jesus said to demonstrate. Oh, well, demonstrating reincarnation. How exactly would you do that? Perhaps by taking knowledge across the death boundary, using superior knowledge you gained in a past life to prove several aspects of modern physics wrong, taking birth 100 years exactly after you last died. Would those things convince you? Experience tells me that people who claim to know how others should live are struggling. Well, you know what, Jay? You're actually really, really close to something very fundamental that I have said many, many times before. Now, this is something about humans that is important to understand. We can't really believe false things. We are designed in some way to experience truth, because if we can't tell what's truly going on around us, we're probably going to die. But we also have an ability we've sort of evolved to conform to society. So that does involve a certain amount of cognitive bias, right? My ego doesn't exist in a universal sense. It exists only localized to me. It feels like it's everything that there is, but really it's just this little thing here. So when people are adamantly trying to convince other people of their views, what that tells me is that they themselves are not actually convinced of their views. And they're trying to convince other people so that they can convince themselves. It's like, well, I must be right. If I've convinced all these other people that I'm right, I must be right. It's the same thing with people who virtue signal, who are actually in real life degenerates. Like, you can either be virtuous or you can virtue signal. You don't really have time for both, right? So people who are obsessed with purity spiraling and obsessed with finger wagging how other people should be, those are the ones you have to watch out for, because they're overcompensating for something. There's something that it's just not right in their own mind, and that insecurity is projected on everyone else. And that's what I'm trying to put a stop to. I'm trying to put a stop to miserable people dragging others down and having social license to do that. Battle for Canada channel. I'm not sure I'm on board with reincarnation theory. Well, you know, the fact is, in some way, wouldn't it be nice if it wasn't true? Because then you could go away, just live once, there would be nothing. I mean, wouldn't that be great? I think it would be a big relief. It's like, oh, I could basically trash the entire place. And it's like a hotel room for, you know, a coked out movie star. You just trash it and leave, and it's like nothing ever happened. But the fact is, you know, your personality is hereditary in the sense that it reincarnates. You are who you are, partially, actually in large part, due to who you were in a past life. Trad, what's your deal, dude? Yeah, I don't know. I get a lot of haters. It's fine. It's normal. Doesn't my ego tell me that I can heal? Yeah, the ego is what heals. But if the ego gets damaged, it's kind of like having a stake in your, like, it's like kind of like getting stabbed with a knife. Someone has to remove the knife. I mean, you may not be able to remove your own ego knives. That's where the guru-student relationship comes in. You can't really always fix yourself unless you already have enlightenment. You need someone else to come in and do it for you and kind of show you the way. That's what's so hard for people to accept in the modern day. Everyone wants to be the guru, i.e. idiots like Heel Turn blabbering on about white kangs. Everyone wants the prestige of being the theocratic dictator, but nobody actually wants to do the work required to lead on that level. Like, you're talking about a huge, huge investment of energy to take on the responsibility of the spiritual lives of other people. And they want the prestige of that. They want everyone to look up to them and admire them. But are they actually able to hold someone else's soul in their hands and actually heal them? Not really. Because if they cared, they'd care about truth. And if they cared about truth, they wouldn't be promoting the Aryan invasion theory. Like, you look like a complete fool to promote the Aryan invasion theory. There's no truth to it. It is a white supremacist. I hate to use that word, but that is what it is. It's basically saying, well, white skinned people are better. They're the ones who gave a religion to Indians. But somehow the Indians were better able to maintain this religion than you? Like, come on. Give me a break. Yeah, no finger wagging, but I believe reincarnation is true or else. See, that's not a contradiction, dude. Every theocracy has rules. It's just a matter of, are you on the authoritarian shithead end of the rules enforcement, or are you on the libertarian end? I mean, every system of government is going to have a theocratic dictator. Okay, so what I'm saying is you can basically say
the show.
A lot.
We're going to turn this show
Luke
into a finishing school. We're going to turn this ship.
Luke has started, so I just wanted to say thanks to everyone for tuning in. I'm going to go and watch Luke. I really enjoyed these live streams. So everyone who is from Luke, who came to this one, I really appreciate you coming here and talking. Can't wait to see you again. Have a great day.